at least we had some closure in this week's episode of Parasyte, because I would have been very upset if I was left on another cliffhanger like these past 2 to 3 episodes have been. Now, this week's episode of Parasyte, it went by, once again, way too fast. I sit down and watch these episodes, and I've said it a lot, but I will continue to say it. I sat down, and I was just drinking a cup of coffee, and before I even had half my cup of coffee drunk, the episode was over. And I'm like, what the fuck? Time flies by so fast when you're watching good anime. It really does. And that just shows you the quality of this series. It really does. When it can do this multiple weeks in a row since almost the very beginning, and it constantly makes me feel like only 3 to 5 minutes have passed, damn good job, Parasyte. Damn good job. So, this week's episode of Parasyte, we conclude the battle with Izumi's mother, or technically dead mother, or her corpse, pretty much. We conclude that fight with her. And in this week's episode, we actually are introduced to 2 new characters that seem to be some form of allies for Izumi, which is very interesting. It changes the overall perspective of how we will think about this series later on in the future, because Izumi, so far from this series, he's been alone, dealing with his issues at hand by himself, for instance, with Migi, and he's always been by himself fighting these other parasites that are coming after him. Well, in this episode, we are introduced to these characters called Uda, and then we're introduced to the character called Parasyte. He's just called Parasyte, title drop, by the way. Parasyte and Uda. I like, overall, their, relationship in this episode. You can clearly see there's a lot of differences between these 2 characters and Izumi and Migi's relationship. I want to go in depth and actually talk about this. As we found out in earlier portions of the series, like Episode 1 and Episode 2, we do know parasites vary. They vary from host to host, different person to person, and their intelligence level varies depending on what type of knowledge they have attained through the person they've either, taken over, or if they try to learn different things. And so, parasites' intelligence can vary. It depends on where they're at, their conditions, all stuff like that. And well, in this episode, we get a clear indication of how different Parasyte is from Migi. There is just way too polar opposites going on here. I'm not saying Parasyte is a bad parasite, he's not that intelligent, but you can clearly see out of all the parasites we have seen, Migi is definitely one of the most intelligent parasites, because you had it to where the parasite that's on Uda, he learnt his speech and how to speak through television. And as we know from all sorts of different theories and different things, superstition stuff that mothers have even said in the past, TV fries your brain, everybody, TV fries your brain. I guess that's not a perfect, location to probably learn how to speak the native language, through TV. I'm just gonna say it right now. But you do have to hand it to Parasyte to actually learn language through a fucking television. So, I guess he did pretty damn good to actually learn that. So it shows he does have some form of intelligence level. It doesn't just stop there. You can tell the overall personality and demeanor of Parasyte is completely different from Migi. He wanted to actually run away. He was trying to lead Uda to run away in this episode. Yes, he was trying to get it to where Izumi would flank the mother and kill her, but the overall personality and perspective of the way that Parasyte was speaking, it was completely different from the way Migi usually is. Very calm, calculative, and he would think of different ways to take out his enemy, pretty much. And to see how these 2 vary, it's really cool. But also, I have to hand it to Parasyte actually fighting against the mother. I'm guessing that's one of his first fights he's actually done, because Uda and Parasyte seem like they are not really, used to fighting. That's what I could see from this episode. As we saw in the first beginning episodes of Parasyte, you had it to where Migi really didn't want to attack, the first parasite they came into contact with, the dog, for instance. And then eventually he attacked the dog, because the dog showed hostility towards them. And so, this shows you that maybe Uda and Parasyte really haven't came in contact with other parasites, and maybe that's the reason why they were so friendly at first. I'm still kind of questioning why Parasyte didn't decide to attack Migi or something. I'm really curious about that. You'd think he would attack to try to defend his host, like Migi technically would do in certain aspects in the earlier parts of the episodes. But, moving past that, let's talk about the different things. So, Uda, he gets the parasite called Parasyte. God, that name is so fucking confusing. Why would you have the series called fucking Parasyte? And when you give me a character that's called Parasyte, it's like I'm talking about the actual title of the freaking series. I'm like, ugh. It pisses me off, and it gets confusing really fast. But anyways, off that. Parasyte and Uda, they're one body, and we find out Parasyte is actually inside Uda's, jaw. His mouth is the parasite, his, neck is the parasite, and probably the lower parts of his chest is the parasite. And as we saw, he demonstrated that he could actually move around the vital organs inside of Uda, and he actually moved the heart and probably lungs and stuff out of the way for the mother of Izumi could not, take a fatal wound against him and kill them. At first, I thought they were going to die. I was actually very upset, and I was actually screaming at my screen saying, come on, Izumi, please, just tell them, how you can, heal their heart. You have to know something. Migi healed your heart. I was hoping that Izumi was going to say something to him, you need to get inside his heart, fix and all that. But thankfully enough, Parasyte was actually very intelligent, and he actually fought about the fighting tactics of the mother that was just aiming for his heart, and he just managed to move his heart out of the way. So, overall, it does show that he does have intelligence, but personally, from my perspective, definitely Migi is the smartest out of the bunch. Now, let's talk about the other aspects of this episode. Besides Uda and Parasyte and all that type of stuff with the introductions to them and the fight between, Izumi and his mother, we find out exactly what is really going on with Izumi's body. A lot is going on. There's a lot of changes to the psychological and physical level of Izumi. Okay, so as we found out in last week's episode, Migi actually transformed into a part of his heart, pretty much, and he is Izumi's heart. That's pretty much what Migi is. And what's told to us in this episode is that technically the Migi we see on Izumi's hand at the moment in this this current episode is only 70% of the current Migi. Now here is the thing. We find out that Migi can actually separate itself. He can, reproduce itself into different little beings, smaller beings. He can keep making more of himself, clone and copies. But as he does this, the actual clones and copies get less intelligent. They get stupider as they continue to, replicate. And so this shows you that Migi is actually not at the intelligence level he used to be. About 4 episodes ago, Migi is no longer at that intelligence level as he used to be. So that's pretty fucking scary if you think about it. Migi's still intelligent, but he's not as intelligent as he was. And it also explains why he needs to rest and sleep, because he only has 70% of himself. And as we found out, Migi was actually going to make his, pieces of his cells. For instance, when he was regrowing Izumi's heart, trying to fix it, he was actually making a directive order where he was going to send his body parts to the right arm once again, through the bloodstream. Well, it turns out Migi kind of made a mistake, and the, little body parts that he split off of himself, they got so small to where they have, no brain process, but they're traveling inside of Izumi's body and through his bloodstream, even into his brain. And this explains why his overall thoughts and the way he's been acting has changed in these past 2 episodes, or even, of course, since the beginning of the series, the way he's been changing. This brings up something very, very interesting that makes me want to Furycraft. I want a Furycraft. I haven't been spoiled. I'm an anime watcher, but I want a Furycraft. These changes have already been happening since the first episode. We have seen demonstrations of this, of how Izumi slowly was getting more rage-induced, he was showing rage and violence in his eyes and stuff, or his face, the way he acted towards the school bullies and stuff. Well, the thing was, I think the overall process of how Migi's, cells were going through the bloodstream, technically they are connected. We do know Migi and Izumi are connected already since the first episode, okay? And they're 2 different brains. But they are connected by the bloodstream. They are. And, Migi gets the nutrients from Izumi. So maybe, just maybe, this overall process that's going on right now with, Migi kind of spreading out all over in Izumi's body was already going on since the very beginning, except when Migi decided to do a directive order and make himself become a heart, and would split his body parts up into little pieces, he actually sped up the process of whatever is really going on inside of Izumi. And this might explain why we've had some form of changes between Migi, the Tsundere Migi from last week's episode and kind of this episode, to Izumi, the way he's acting all freaking cold-blooded killer, and the way he was actually showing no emotions when he killed his mother, or when, he should have cried when his dad was very sad. So it shows you there's a lot going on here inside of his mind, and it explains a lot. It really explains a lot with this episode. Now, here is the theory I want to dive into. My theory is, since technically, I'm saying that this has been happening since the very beginning, Migi has slowly been spreading into pieces, slowly inside of Izumi. It's already been happening, but it got sped up. And Migi technically gets stupider as more of his body parts go away. For instance, he loses more of his parts, they'll have no brain processing functions at all, and then Migi will eventually dumb down to, nothing. I have a feeling that parasites like Migi, or the parasite that's on Uda, they will spread out into the body. And the thing is eventually, they will disappear. I want to say it right now. I think eventually, their overall, the way they're attached to their host, they will actually disappear, slowly disappear, like they will fuse with their host. Completely fuse to where they're one being. Not just like two separate entities, I'm talking about two different beings. Like the human actually is the controller of the body, but the parasite gets absorbed into the human, and the overall parasite cells inside the bloodstream strengthen the human, and strengthen his intelligence, I'm guessing, strengthen all sorts of stuff, and it causes it to where the parasite disappears. I want to say right now, that's my theory. I personally believe Migi at the very end of the series is going to disappear after this. I want to say it right now. It's a given. After finding out stuff about this with how he's splitting up into different pieces, I want to say it now. That's definitely going to happen. I'm calling it. I'm fucking calling it. I sense that so freaking hard. Now, past that, the fight with the mother, pretty much, it was pretty cool. I like the cold badassness of Izumi. He's just, oh my god, when he was about to kill his mother, like he sliced his mother, I mean, he was raising his freaking, like, sword hand up about to slice her. He stopped because of scars, but he showed no emotion, and it just shows you the changes that's going on in his mind. It's crazy. It's really crazy how much he has changed from the very beginning of the series, and I'm loving it. I'm fucking loving it. Great freaking series. Once again, another wonderful episode of Parasyte. You've yet to watch it, go fucking watch it. It is enjoyable as fuck. I love it so much. Parasyte is one of my favorite series to watch weekly. And to see how great this episode is when it brings up all these different theories, I'm just excited to see exactly what is going to happen. I really hope Migi doesn't actually disappear, because I love the little guy. He's a badass, and I'm starting to love him. I'm really growing attached to his character, and if he does disappear, that will be a very tragic ending to the series, but I feel like something like that is going to happen. So anyways, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.